The rain had not stopped for 3 days on the outer planet of Corellis. The battlefield was a muddy wasteland, filled with craters and smoke rising in the distance. In the middle of this storm of war stood a human medical station. The station was nothing more than a cluster of tents, their fabric torn by the wind. But inside those tents lay the heartbeat of survival. Soldiers from both the human fleets and their alien allies were carried there, broken, bleeding, or burned, hoping to see another sunrise. Lieutenant Aaron Hale worked inside the main tent. He was not a soldier with a gun, but a soldier with steady hands. His duty was not to take lives, but to save them. At only 27 years old, he had already seen more wounds, more pain, and more death than most people would see in a lifetime. Yet his eyes stayed calm. His voice stayed firm. When chaos surrounded him, he became the still point in the storm. Aaron moved quickly between patients. One human soldier had a leg wound from shrapnel. Another, an alien with scaled skin, had been hit with plasma fire. Aaron did not see them as different. To him, they were all people who needed help. He stitched, he bandaged, he gave orders to his assistants. Every movement of his hand was practiced, every decision fast but careful. Outside, the roar of distant explosions echoed across the hills. The war against the Drokar, a brutal invading species, was far from over. The humans had come to fight alongside the kingdom of Valari, a proud alien monarchy whose worlds were threatened. The Valari were tall, graceful beings with luminous skin that shimmered faintly in the light. Their culture was filled with strict rules about rank, bloodlines, and honor. They looked at humans with mixed feelings, useful allies but not equals. Aaron had grown used to their cold stares when he treated their soldiers. He didn't care about politics. He cared about saving lives. It was near dusk when the alarm horn sounded outside the camp. The sound was deep and urgent. Soldiers rushed in, shouting in the Valari tongue. Aaron turned sharply. Something unusual was happening. 2 massive guards entered the tent, their armor dented from battle. Between them, they carried a stretcher. Upon it lay a young Valari woman, her silver armor cracked, her body limp and covered in blood. Gasps filled the tent. The assistants froze in place. Aaron stepped forward, eyes narrowing as he studied the patient. "She's badly injured," he said quickly, moving to clear a table. "Get her down here now!" But the guards hesitated. One of them snapped in broken human speech, "Careful, medic. This is Princess Serenia, daughter of the king. You must not—" "We don't have time for ceremony," Aaron cut him off firmly. "If I don't act now, she'll die." The guards exchanged nervous looks. Among the Valari, the royal family was untouchable. No one, especially a human, was allowed to lay hands on them without permission from the king himself. But the princess's breathing was shallow, her chest rising only faintly. Blood pooled from a wound in her side. Aaron's voice rose. "Do you want to explain to your king that you let his daughter die because you were worried about who touched her?" "Put her down!" The force in his tone startled even his assistants. Slowly, reluctantly, the guards lowered the princess onto the medical bed. Aaron bent over her at once. Her face was pale, though even in weakness her features held a fierce beauty. Her long silver hair was tangled with dirt and blood. Her armor, once shining, was shattered around the wound. He did not think of her as royalty. He thought of her as a patient. "She's lost too much blood," Aaron muttered. "Scalpel now." His assistant handed it over. He cut away the damaged armor and clothing near her wound. The injury was deep. Plasma burn mixed with shrapnel. If not treated quickly, she would bleed out. "Clamp," Aaron ordered. His hands moved swiftly, stopping the bleeding, cleaning the burn, removing fragments. The guards shifted uncomfortably, watching a human lay hands on their princess. Minutes turned into an hour of focused work. The rain outside beat against the tent, thunder rolling in the distance. But inside, the only sound Aaron cared about was the weak rhythm of her breathing. Slowly, carefully, he closed the wound with precise stitches, his fingers steady despite the pressure. At last, he pulled off his gloves, sweat dripping down his brow. "She'll live," he said simply. The relief in the tent was heavy, but the guards' faces remained tense. They knew this act would not be taken lightly. Still, they had no choice. Without the human medic, their princess would have been gone. When Serenia woke, it was long past midnight. The rain had stopped, leaving the air damp and heavy. The camp was quieter, though the distant boom of artillery reminded everyone that the war had not ended. Her eyes fluttered open. She saw the canvas ceiling above her, then felt the bandages wrapped around her torso, Pain shot through her side as she tried to sit up. "Don't move," a voice said beside her. She turned her head sharply. A human sat by her bed, adjusting a monitor connected to her vitals. His brown hair was messy, his uniform stained with the day's work. His eyes, however, were calm, watching her with quiet focus. "Who?" Her voice was weak but sharp with suspicion. "Lieutenant Aaron Hale," he replied. "Field medic. You're safe, for now." Her silver eyes narrowed. "A human touched me." Aaron didn't flinch. "Yes, I saved your life." "You're welcome." Serenya's pride flared. Among the Valari, she was not only royalty, but also known for her strength as a warrior. The idea that she had been helpless in the hands of a human filled her with anger. "You dare speak so casually to me? I am Serenya, daughter of King Varos of Valari. You had no right." Aaron leaned back slightly, folding his arms. "If I hadn't acted, you'd be dead right now. I don't care about your titles. In here, you're just another patient." Her eyes widened, shocked at his bluntness. No one, no soldier, no officer, not even many nobles, spoke to her like that. "You, insolent human," she whispered, though her voice wavered with weakness. "I've been called worse," Aaron said dryly. He adjusted her bandages carefully, ignoring her glare. Serenya clenched her teeth. She hated the way her body felt weak, the way this human treated her with no fear. Yet part of her deep inside recognized the truth. He had saved her life when others hesitated. The guards entered the tent then, bowing slightly to their princess. They looked uneasy seeing her awake. "Your Highness," one said, "this human medic, he treated you. It was the only way." Serenya's pride told her to rage, to demand punishment for the man who dared touch her royal blood. But as she looked at Aaron again, she saw something strange in his eyes. No hunger for glory, no fear of her wrath, just steady patience. Her words caught in her throat. For the first time in her life, Princess Serenya felt unsettled. That night, Aaron stayed nearby, checking on her condition. Outside, the whispers spread quickly. Soldiers from both species murmured that the human had touched the princess, that he had saved her life. Some said it was a great honor. Others said it was an insult that could ignite tension between allies. Aaron ignored the gossip. He sat quietly, watching over the patient he had fought so hard to keep alive. To him, it did not matter if she was a princess or a common soldier. What mattered was that she was breathing, and yet he knew deep down this was only the beginning. The war was not finished. The camp was not safe, and now, with the life of a princess tied to his hands, Aaron Hale had stepped into a storm far greater than the battlefield outside. The morning sun broke weakly through the gray clouds, casting a dull light over the war camp. Smoke still rose from the hills where the last battle had raged. The camp was alive with movement, soldiers sharpening weapons, engineers repairing broken machinery, and scouts preparing to head back into the field. But inside the medical tent, things were different. The air was quieter, filled with the smell of herbs, antiseptics, and the faint hum of machines. Princess Serenya lay on the cot, her side tightly bandaged. Her skin glowed faintly with the natural shimmer of the Valari, though it had dulled from blood loss. Her eyes opened slowly, adjusting to the light. The first thing she saw was not her royal guards, not her loyal attendants, but the same human who had dared to save her life. Aaron Hale sat on a small chair beside her, carefully writing notes on a datapad. His uniform jacket was wrinkled, his hands still carrying faint stains of medical work from the long night. He looked focused, his brow slightly furrowed, as though her presence did not unsettle him at all. Serenya's pride burned instantly. "You are still here," she said, her voice sharp though weak. Aaron glanced up calmly. "Yes, I need to check your wound every few hours. Infection is still a risk." "You speak as though I asked for this." He set the datapad aside. "You didn't, but it was either my hands or death. And I chose the first option." Her silver eyes narrowed. "A human choosing for me?" "You forget yourself." Aaron didn't flinch. He had grown used to anger from patients who didn't like hearing the truth. Serenya's defiance was not so different, except for the fact that she was the daughter of a king. "Do you want to live or not?" Aaron asked bluntly. The tent went still. Even the guards standing nearby shifted uneasily, shocked by his words. No one spoke to the princess like that. Serenya's pride told her to lash out, to demand his silence. Yet her body betrayed her. Pain flared in her side, and she knew deep inside that if not for him, she would not be alive to argue at all. She looked away, her voice low. You are fortunate that my father is not here. He would have your tongue for such insolence. Aaron leaned forward, checking the monitors again. Maybe, but your father isn't here, I am. And I'll keep you alive until he arrives. For hours, the tent was a battlefield of silence and sharp words. Serenia demanded better treatment, calling for Valari healers instead of a human. Aaron explained calmly that most Valari healers were either far away or dead from the last skirmish. He told her bluntly that she was safer under his care. Her pride clashed against his patience like steel against stone. Every time she tried to assert her authority, he responded with calm logic. Every time she tried to remind him of who she was, he reminded her of what she was now, an injured soldier who needed care. Do not mistake this weakness as my true self, she told him, her voice sharp. I am a warrior. I led a charge against the Drokar before you were even assigned here. I will not be treated like some helpless child. Aaron adjusted her bandages gently. Good. Then heal fast so you can get back to leading charges. But until then, you're not a warrior, you're my patient. Her hands clenched at the sheets. No one dared speak to her so simply. Yet this human said it without malice, without fear. It was as though he didn't care for her crown, her lineage, or her pride. He only cared that her wound stayed closed, that her body recovered. Serenia didn't know whether to feel insulted or strangely respected. By midday, news of the human medic who saved the princess had spread through the camp. Wherever Aaron walked, he felt eyes on him. Some Valari soldiers sneered, their whispers sharp with disapproval. To them, it was unthinkable that a human had touched their royal blood. Others, especially the younger ones, seemed curious, almost impressed. The humans in the camp treated him with quiet admiration, though none dared say too much, fearing trouble with their allies. Inside the tent, Serenia continued to test him. She asked pointed questions. Do humans always act without permission? Do humans think themselves above the laws of others? Do humans know what it means to serve a king? Aaron answered each calmly, though sometimes his answers surprised her. We act when lives are in danger. Waiting for permission wastes time. We don't think we're above anyone, but we also don't think we're beneath anyone. I don't serve kings. I serve life. My oath is to heal, not to flatter rulers. Serenia studied him quietly after each reply. He was different from what she expected. Humans were supposed to be desperate, reckless allies who bent to Valari rule for protection. Yet here was one human who did not bend, did not beg, did not try to win her favor. He simply did his duty with stubborn calmness. It unsettled her more than any enemy blade. Later that day, Aaron stepped outside for a brief moment of fresh air. The camp buzzed with tension. 2 Valari soldiers approached him, their eyes cold. You should have left her to Valari hands, one said sharply in their tongue, though Aaron understood enough of their words. The king will not be pleased. Aaron met their gaze evenly. If I had left her, she'd be dead. Do you think the king would be more pleased with that? The soldier's jaw tightened, but he had no answer. The other muttered something under his breath and stalked away. Aaron knew trouble was brewing. His actions had placed him in the middle of politics he wanted nothing to do with. When he returned to the tent, Serenia was awake, watching him carefully. They whisper about you, she said softly, her tone less sharp than before. Aaron shrugged. Let them whisper. Doesn't change what happened. Her gaze lingered on him, thoughtful. For the first time, she didn't answer with anger. That night, as the camp quieted, Serenia shifted in her bed. Her side still ached, but her mind was restless. She looked at Aaron, who sat nearby again, quietly cleaning instruments. You risked much, she said suddenly. Aaron glanced up. What do you mean? My people do not forgive easily. You touched royal blood. You spoke without fear. You could be punished for that. Aaron set the instruments aside and met her eyes. Maybe, but if I hadn't, you'd be gone. I can live with punishment. I can't live with letting someone die when I could stop it. His words were simple, yet they carried a weight Serenia could not ignore. She studied him in silence. This human was unlike the arrogant ones she had seen before, who sought glory or wealth. He did not even seem to care what became of him. His only concern had been her life. For the first time, Serenia felt something unfamiliar, confusion mixed with a small spark of respect. She turned her head away, hiding the faintest softness in her expression. You are reckless, human. Aaron smiled faintly, though she did not see it. Maybe, but you're alive. That's all that matters. The following morning, scouts brought grim news. The Drokar were regrouping nearby. A raid was likely within the next day. The camp grew tense again, preparing defenses. Soldiers trained, weapons were distributed, and officers planned strategies. Inside the tent, Aaron focused on keeping his patient stable, but his thoughts lingered on the princess. Her wound was healing, but she was still fragile. If the camp came under attack, her life would be at risk again. Serenia, however, refused to remain still. Even in her weakened state, she demanded to know the situation outside. She tried to rise from her bed, pain flashing in her side. "Stop," Aaron said firmly, pushing her back gently. "You're not ready to fight." "I am no fragile thing," she snapped. "My people fight while I lie here useless? No, I will not stay hidden." "You'll tear your wound open if you push yourself," Aaron replied, his tone sharp. "And then all my work will mean nothing. Do you want that?" She glared at him, her pride burning. Yet his eyes were steady, unshaken by her fury. Slowly, reluctantly, she lowered herself back down. Her voice softened, almost grudgingly. "You care more for my wound than for your own life." Aaron gave a small shrug. "That's my job." As the day wore on, Serenia found herself watching him more closely. Every movement, every word, every choice he made, it all carried the same steady certainty. He was no warrior, no noble, no courtier. Yet in his own way, he was unyielding. For the first time in her life, Princess Serenia began to wonder if perhaps humans were not as weak as she had believed. And deep inside, though she would never admit it aloud, she was grateful. The night fell heavy on the camp. The stars above Corrales shone faintly through a veil of clouds, and the ground was wet from the endless rains. The campfires flickered weakly. Soldiers sat polishing their weapons, and sentries walked the perimeter with tense eyes. Everyone knew the Drokar would not stay quiet for long. Inside the medical tent, the air was thick with worry. Patients groaned softly. Nurses moved from bed to bed, and Aaron Hale stood at his station cleaning his hands. His eyes, however, often flicked toward the far corner where Princess Serenia rested. She looked stronger than before. Her bandages were fresh, her breathing steadier. But Aaron noticed the way she shifted, restless and alert. Unlike other patients who accepted their recovery in silence, Serenia was impatient. She was a warrior at heart, and every hour lying in a bed felt like an insult to her pride. Aaron finished tending to another patient and approached her. "You should rest," he said firmly. Her silver eyes turned to him. "I have rested enough. My body heals, but my spirit grows restless." "Do you not hear it, human?" "The silence outside is too heavy. The Drokar are near." Aaron glanced at the tent flaps where the muffled sounds of the camp reached them. She wasn't wrong. There was an edge in the air, a stillness that often came before violence. "You'll know soon enough if they attack," Aaron replied. "But for now, stay in bed. Your wound isn't ready for more strain." Serenia let out a sharp breath, her pride bristling. "You command me as though I were your soldier." "I command you because I'm the one keeping you alive," Aaron said evenly. For a long moment she glared at him, but his steady eyes did not falter. At last, she looked away, muttering something in her own tongue that Aaron didn't understand. The camp alarm sounded not long after midnight. A deep horn blasted across the valley, followed by shouts of soldiers rushing to arms. The ground shook faintly as distant explosions rumbled. Drokar were attacking. The tent erupted into chaos. Patients stirred in panic. Nurses scrambled to keep order, and guards rushed outside. Aaron's heart quickened, but his hands remained steady. He had lived through raids before. He knew his duty. "Stay down," he told Serenia, who was already trying to rise. "No," she snapped, throwing off her blanket. She gritted her teeth as pain flared in her side, but her eyes burned with fire. "I will not hide while my people bleed." Aaron grabbed her shoulder firmly. "If you tear that wound, you'll bleed out in minutes." "You can't fight like this." "I can," she hissed. "Even wounded, I am not useless." Another explosion shook the ground, closer this time. The shouts outside grew louder. The Drokar were breaking through the outer defenses. Aaron knew arguing further was useless. Serenia's pride would not let her cower, and deep down he understood her spirit. She was a warrior princess. Her will was as much a part of her survival as his bandages. "Fine," he said at last. "But if you're going, I'm going with you." Serenia blinked in surprise. "You? You are no fighter." "I don't need to be," Aaron replied, grabbing a small med kit and slinging it over his shoulder. "But you'll need me if you fall again." Her lips pressed into a thin line, but she gave a short nod. Together they moved toward the tent entrance. The night outside was chaos. Drokar troops poured from the dark hills. their hulking forms outlined in the flickering firelight. Their armor was jagged and black, their weapons glowing with deadly energy. Velari soldiers met them with blades and plasma rifles, shouting war cries as the clash began. Aaron and Serenia stayed close, weaving through the confusion. Aaron's eyes darted everywhere, searching for wounded while also keeping watch over her. Serenia, despite her injury, moved with surprising grace, though her steps sometimes faltered. A Drokar warrior suddenly charged from the shadows, its blade raised high. Serenia reacted instantly. With a swift movement, she drew a small dagger from her side. Pain flared in her body, but she pushed through it, striking the Drokar across its chest. The creature stumbled back, roaring in anger before being cut down by another Velari soldier. Aaron stared for a second, impressed by her speed despite her condition, but he quickly shook it off, moving to a fallen soldier nearby. "Help me here," he shouted to Serenia. For a moment, she hesitated. She was a warrior, not a healer. But when she saw Aaron's urgency, she dropped beside him. Together, they dragged the wounded Velari behind cover. Aaron's hands worked fast, sealing the soldier's wound while Serenia guarded them with dagger in hand. The strange partnership continued as the battle raged. Aaron rushed to the injured, patching wounds with quick precision, while Serenia stood over him like a shield, striking down any Drokar who came too close. More than once, Aaron found himself saved by her sharp blade. And more than once, Serenia saw soldiers live because of Aaron's steady hands. Slowly, in the shadows of war, a bond began to form. At one point, they ducked behind a ruined wall as plasma fire scorched the ground nearby. Serenia pressed a hand to her side, grimacing. "You're bleeding again," Aaron said quickly, reaching for her wound. She shoved his hand away. "Do not waste time on me. Others need you more." "Don't be stubborn," Aaron snapped. "If you fall, all this means nothing." For the first time, Serenia did not argue. She allowed him to check her bandage. His hands were gentle but firm, pressing cloth against the wound to slow the bleeding. "You are reckless," she muttered, her voice softer now, "running into fire with nothing but a bag of tools. And you're reckless for standing when you should be resting," Aaron replied, meeting her eyes. Their gazes held for a moment. In the middle of war, in the shadow of death, something unspoken passed between them. Respect, maybe even trust. The battle dragged on for hours. The Drokar pressed hard, but the Velari defenses held with fierce determination. Serenia fought through her pain, striking down enemy after enemy, while Aaron kept soldiers alive with every scrap of skill he had. Finally, as the first light of dawn touched the horizon, the Drokar began to retreat. Their hulking forms vanished into the hills, leaving behind smoking ground and the cries of the wounded. The camp was battered but not broken. Victory had come, though at a heavy price. Aaron, exhausted, collapsed to his knees beside a cluster of patients. His arms ached, his hands were raw, but his heart still beat steady. He looked up to see Serenia standing nearby, her dagger stained, her body trembling with exhaustion. Yet her eyes glowed fiercely, proud and unbroken. She met his gaze across the field of ash and ruin. For the first time, she did not see a weak human, a lesser ally, or an intruder. She saw a man who had stood beside her when it mattered most. And Aaron, though too tired to say anything, knew that something had changed between them. Later, back inside the medical tent, Serenia sat on her cot once more, her bandages freshly replaced. She was pale but alive. Aaron sat nearby, drinking water slowly, his uniform stained with blood that was not his own. "You fought like a fool," Serenia said at last. Aaron chuckled tiredly. "Takes one to know one." She almost smiled, though she quickly hid it. "You are still insolent, human." But her voice softened. "I cannot deny the truth. Twice now I live because of you." On the bed and on the field, Aaron shrugged. "Just doing my job." "No," she said firmly. "It was more than duty. You risked yourself again and again, for me, for my people." Aaron looked at her, his expression calm but tired. "That's what humans do. We stand where we're needed even if no one asks us to." Serenia was quiet for a long time. Then slowly she nodded. "Perhaps I misjudged your kind." It was not a full surrender of her pride, but it was more than Aaron had expected. As the camp settled after the long night, whispers spread quickly of what had happened. The human medic and the alien princess had fought side by side. Some called it a sign of strength between allies. Others muttered it was an insult to Velari honor, but for Serenia it no longer mattered what others whispered. For the first time, she felt something she had never thought possible. Trust. The sun rose high above the valley of Corrales, but its warmth did little to ease the tension in the war camp. Smoke still lingered in the air from the night raid, and the ground was littered with broken weapons and burned soil. Soldiers worked to rebuild the barricades. Nurses tended to the wounded, and guards patrolled the edges of the camp with wary eyes. Inside the medical tent, Lieutenant Aaron Hale moved quietly between the cots. He checked on bandages, measured fluids, and spoke softly to those still in pain. His body ached with exhaustion after the long night, but his mind was steady. This was his place among the wounded, keeping them alive. Yet no matter how much he tried to focus, Aaron felt the weight of whispers. Everywhere he went, soldiers stared. Some Villari gave him cold glares, others curious glances. The story of the battle had spread, how a human medic had fought side by side with Princess Serenia, shielding her, saving her again. Some called him reckless. Others called him brave. But all agreed on one thing: the king would hear of it soon. By midday, the news arrived. A royal messenger, clad in shimmering silver armor, entered the tent with a booming voice. Lieutenant Aaron Hale, by order of His Majesty King Varos of Villari, you are summoned before the throne immediately. The tent grew silent. Patients turned their heads. Nurses froze mid-step. Even Serenia, sitting upright on her cot, felt her breath catch. Aaron looked up from the patient he was tending. His face showed no fear, only calm acceptance. He wiped his hands, set down his tools, and nodded. Tell His Majesty I'll come at once. The messenger frowned at his lack of hesitation. See that you show respect, human. You have touched what no outsider may touch. Aaron said nothing more. He turned toward Serenia, who met his eyes with an unreadable expression. Her lips parted slightly as though she wanted to speak, but pride held her silent. Aaron gave her the smallest nod before following the messenger out. The royal chamber had been built inside a massive transport ship parked at the center of the camp. Its walls gleamed with polished metal, its banners draped in silver and blue. The air inside was cooler, heavy with the scent of incense and burning crystals. Guards lined the path, their faces sharp and their eyes fixed on the human walking among them. At the far end sat King Varos, ruler of the Villari. He was tall, even seated, with shoulders broad and eyes like molten silver. His crown shimmered faintly, a circlet of crystal and metal, and his long robes flowed like liquid light. He was not only a king but a warrior, his presence filling the chamber with silent power. Aaron stopped at the base of the steps leading to the throne. He bowed his head slightly, not deeply but with calm respect. Lieutenant Aaron Hale, the king said, his voice deep and commanding. Step forward. Aaron obeyed, standing tall though surrounded by hostile eyes. The king's gaze was cold. You are the human who touched my daughter. You are the one who dared to place your hands upon royal blood, the court murmured with anger. Several nobles muttered insults under their breath, their disdain clear. Aaron met the king's eyes without flinching. Yes, your majesty. I am. Do you know the weight of your crime? Varos thundered. Among the Villari, the royal line is sacred. No healer, no soldier, no outsider may treat the flesh of a king's blood without permission. And yet you did. Aaron's voice was calm. I know, your majesty, but I also know that without me, your daughter would not be alive to hear these words. Gasps rippled through the court. To speak so bluntly before the throne was unthinkable. Guards shifted, hands gripping their weapons. But Aaron did not falter. His eyes were steady, his tone respectful yet firm. I am a medic, he continued. My duty is to heal no matter the rank, no matter the species. I did not act for honor. I did not act for glory. I acted because if I hesitated, she would have died. That is the truth. The king's face darkened. And in the battle last night, you put yourself at her side again. Why? Was saving her once not enough for you, human? Aaron stood silent for a moment before answering. Because she refused to hide. Because she chose to fight even when wounded. And because I would not let her fall. I did what I would do for any soldier. I kept her alive. The murmurs grew louder. Some nobles sneered, calling it arrogance. Others whispered of courage. Then a new voice rang out across the chamber. He speaks the truth. All eyes turned. The court doors opened and Princess Serenia entered, her steps slow but firm. She still wore her bandages beneath her armor, her skin pale from blood loss but her eyes blazed with defiance. "Father," she said, her voice carrying clear, "this human is the reason I breathe still. Twice he risked his life for mine. Without him, I would be cold in the ground. If you call him guilty, then so am I, for I accepted his aid." The court erupted in shock. Nobles shouted, guards looked uneasy, and the king himself rose from his throne, his tall form casting a long shadow. "Serenia," he rumbled, his voice both stern and heavy with concern. "You would defend this human against your own people's law?" "Yes," she said without hesitation. "Because he did what none of my guards dared. He saw only a life that needed saving, not a crown, not a title. He treated me as a warrior who had fallen, not as a distant figure to be feared, and for that I stand here today." Her words rang through the hall, silencing many of the whispers. Aaron watched quietly, his expression unchanged. Inside, though, he felt something shift. Serenia had chosen to defend him, not with anger, but with truth. The king studied his daughter for a long, silent moment. Then his gaze turned back to Aaron. "You speak boldly, human," Vero said at last, his tone slower, heavier. "And my daughter's defense of you weighs much in my judgment. Yet laws are not broken lightly. If I forgive this act, what message do I send to my people? That humans may touch what is sacred? That our rules mean nothing?" Aaron took a slow breath. "No, Your Majesty. Forgiving me would not say your laws mean nothing. It would say that life is greater than law, that compassion is stronger than pride. It would say that sometimes to preserve what is sacred, one must break the rules that bind it." The hall fell into silence. Even Serenia blinked at his words, surprised by their boldness. The king's eyes narrowed, studying him like a blade being tested. The weight of his gaze was immense, pressing down like a mountain. But Aaron did not bow, did not tremble. Finally, the king spoke. "You are either very brave or very foolish." "Human. Perhaps both," Aaron said quietly. A faint sound escaped Serenia, something between a laugh and a scoff. The king lifted a hand, silencing the court. "Enough, I have heard enough. You all know my law. You all know what this human has done. But you also know the truth my daughter has spoken. Without him, she would not stand before us. Without him, I would mourn my child." He paused, his voice growing deeper. "So I choose this. I will not punish the human. Instead, I will grant him an honor no human has ever held. From this day, Lieutenant Aaron Hale is declared an honored ally of the House of Villari. His hands, though human, are recognized by my crown as hands that preserve life, not dishonor it." The hall gasped in shock. Some nobles shouted in protest. Others bowed their heads reluctantly. Guards pounded their spears once against the floor, acknowledging the decree. Aaron blinked, surprised but calm. He bowed his head slightly. "Thank you, Your Majesty." Serenia's eyes softened, her pride hiding a flicker of relief. After the judgment, Aaron left the throne room with Serenia walking beside him. For once, she did not speak sharp words. For once, her stride was not filled with arrogance, but quiet thought. Finally, as they stepped into the cool evening air, she looked at him. "You realize what you've done," she said softly. "My father does not grant such honors lightly. You are bound to my house now. You are no longer just a human medic. You are something more." Aaron gave a small smile. "I didn't ask for any of this. I just did my job." Serenia studied him, her expression unreadable. "Perhaps. But sometimes those who do not ask for greatness are the ones who carry it best." She walked ahead, her silver hair catching the last light of the sun. Aaron watched her go, feeling the weight of her words. He had not sought power, titles, or glory. Yet somehow, by simply doing what he believed was right, he had stepped into the heart of a kingdom's destiny. And though the war with the Drokar was far from over, he knew now that his path was tied to Princess Serenia's, in ways neither of them had yet begun to understand. The evening after the king's judgment was heavy with silence. The entire Villari war camp buzzed with restless energy, the kind that follows shocking news. Soldiers whispered in their tents, nobles gathered in corners, and the guards remained more alert than ever. For the first time in Villari history, a human had been given an honor by the royal house. Some called it blasphemy, others a sign of progress, but none could deny the truth. Lieutenant Aaron Hale, once only a medic tending to the broken, now stood as a bridge between two species. Aaron, however, felt no pride in the title. He sat quietly outside the medical bay, leaning against a post while sharpening his small combat knife. His hands moved out of habit not because he needed the blade sharp, but because it gave him something to focus on. He did not think of crowns, politics, or titles. He thought of the men he had lost on the battlefield, the cries of the wounded, the endless faces of pain he had seen. And unavoidably, he thought of Serenia. Inside the royal pavilion, Serenia faced her father again. King Vero sat tall on his throne, the glow of crystal lanterns lighting the chamber. His silver eyes studied his daughter with patience, though there was weariness in them too. "You spoke boldly today," he said, his voice softer than it had been in court. "You defended the human before all." Serenia held his gaze. "Because he deserved it. Without him, I would not be here. Without him, our soldiers would have fallen in the raid. He is not like the others." The king nodded slowly. "I know, I saw the truth in his words and in yours. That is why I honored him." Serenia hesitated, then stepped closer. "But father, I want to give him something more. Not just the title you gave, but something personal. A reward from me." The king raised a brow. "A reward?" "Yes," Serenia said firmly. "Because he treated me not as a princess, but as a warrior. Because he looked at me and saw life to be protected, not a crown to be feared. He showed me respect in the truest way by refusing to bow to fear." The king studied her quietly. "And what is it you wish to give him?" Serenia reached into a small chest at her side and withdrew a medallion. It was carved from pure silverstone etched with ancient Valari runes, its center holding a crystal shard that glowed faintly in the dark. "This," she said, "the medallion of unity. It is not a crown jewel. It is not a weapon. It is a symbol of trust, given only by choice of the royal line. If I give this to him, it means he is bound to me and I to him. It means our fates are tied in honor." For a long moment, the king said nothing. Then, with a slow smile, he leaned back. "You truly have changed, Serenia. The defiant daughter who once mocked humans now speaks of bonds with them." Serenia lifted her chin, pride in her voice. "Perhaps I was wrong. Perhaps humans are not as weak as I believed. At least not him." The king gave a low chuckle. "Very well. If this is your choice, then give it. But remember, such a gift cannot be taken back. Once you bind yourself to him with this medallion, his name will forever be tied to yours in the songs of our people." "I know," Serenia said, "and I accept it." That night, Aaron was summoned again. A guard led him through the camp to a quieter place away from the main throne chamber. The path curved around the royal pavilion to a small terrace built atop the ship's landing bay. The stars stretched wide above, endless and clear, while the twin moons of Corrales bathed the world in pale light. Serenia stood there, dressed not in armor, but in a long silver cloak. Her hair shimmered under the moons, and the faint bandages on her arms peeked from beneath her sleeves. In her hand she held the medallion. Aaron stopped a few paces away, unsure. "You called for me?" "Yes," Serenia said, her voice steady but softer than usual. "I did." For a moment she studied him in silence. He stood with the same calm presence as always, shoulders straight, expression quiet, eyes focused on her with neither fear nor awe. Finally she stepped closer. "You changed everything today. My father, my people, even me. You forced us to see what we refused to see, and you risked your life for me, not once but twice." Aaron shook his head slightly. "I didn't do it for titles or for thanks. I just couldn't stand aside and let someone die." "I know," she said, "and that is why this belongs to you." She lifted the medallion. The silverstone glowed faintly, its runes shimmering like living light. "This is the medallion of unity. In my people's history, it has only been given a handful of times. It means that the one who wears it is bound in trust with the royal line. It means I recognize you not as lesser, not as outsider, but as equal." Aaron looked at the medallion, then at her. His eyes narrowed slightly. "Serenia, this is too much. I don't need gifts. I don't need symbols. I'm just a medic." Her lips curved into the faintest smile. "No, you are more than that. You healed my body, yes, but you also healed my eyes. You showed me truth I refused to see. That is a greater gift than any blade or crown." She reached forward and pressed the medallion into his hand. Aaron hesitated. The cool silverstone felt heavy, not just in weight but in meaning. He stared at it for a long moment before closing his hand around it. "I don't know if I deserve this," he said quietly. "Perhaps not," Serenia replied, "but sometimes worth is not measured by what we deserve. It is measured by what we give, and you have given much." For the first time, Aaron saw not only pride in her eyes, but something else, something softer, deeper. Respect. They stood in silence beneath the stars. Around them, the camp buzzed faintly, the war still waiting beyond the horizon. But for that moment, the noise of the world seemed far away. Finally, Serenia spoke again. "Do you know what the Valari will say now? That you are my chosen, that you are bound to me." Aaron raised a brow. "Bound to you? That sounds complicated." Serenia gave a short laugh, light and unexpected. "It is, but perhaps complications are what make life worth living." Aaron allowed himself a small smile. "Then I'll carry it. Not for glory, not for power, but because it matters to you." She nodded. "That is enough." The following morning, the camp awoke to see Aaron walking through the rows of soldiers with the medallion hanging around his neck. Whispers followed him like shadows. Some bowed their heads in respect, others turned away in anger, but all recognized the truth. He was no longer just a human medic. He was the bearer of the Medallion of Unity, a symbol that tied the fate of humanity and Valari together. Serenia walked beside him, her cloak brushing the ground, her posture proud. The sight of the princess and the human together sent waves of shock and wonder across the camp, and though the war still raged on the edges of the world, though battle still loomed on the horizon, something had changed. A bond had been forged. A trust had been sealed. That evening, Aaron stood on a hill overlooking the battlefield ahead. Serenia joined him, her voice quiet. "You know, when I first saw you, I thought you were nothing, a human medic with no strength, no worth. But now—" She paused, the words catching. "Now I see I was blind." Aaron glanced at her. "And what do you see now?" She met his eyes, her silver gaze clear in the moonlight. "I see someone who makes me want to believe. Someone who makes me think humans are far more than we ever imagined. You did not just heal my wounds, Aaron. You healed something greater. You healed the wall between us." For a moment, neither spoke. Then Aaron looked back at the battlefield. His voice was calm, steady. "Then let's finish this war together." Serenia nodded. "Together." And under the twin moons of Corellis, a human and an alien princess stood side by side, united not by law, not by force, but by trust. The war was not over. Their journey was only beginning. But already the galaxy would remember this moment as the first spark of something far greater.